Good morning, everybody. Good morning on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast and everywhere in between. My name is Dr. Liz Dexter-Mazza, and welcome to our DBT Steps A class of student skills for surviving and thriving during COVID-19 and beyond. We are in our second to last class that we've been streaming since now the beginning of April from our living room with our kids, teaching the DBT Steps A social-emotional learning skills. All of the lessons that we've been teaching during this time have come out of the DBT Skills in Schools social-emotional learning curriculum that myself and Jim Mazza and some colleagues developed of how do we bring the DBT clinical therapy skills that are taught in treatment into schools as life skills that every student learns as a part of educating the whole child. So we are glad you are here today. I'm going to give a brief moment to have everybody introduce themselves, and then we will get started.
My name is Ashton. I'm 12 and I'm in 6th grade.
Thank you.
My name is Grace. I'm 8 and I'm in 2nd grade.
My name is Jackson. I am 13 and I'm in 7th grade.
Excellent. And Jim, come introduce yourself briefly here.
I am Jim Mazza. I'm one of the developers of the Steps A curriculum.
Mm-hmm. And my partner and their dad, and we do all the things together. So with that, let me give you a couple other announcements, and just letting you know that today and Thursday will be our last DBT Steps A classes. We're excited for all those who've been joining us all along. And next Tuesday will be our second live Q&A webinar that's sponsored by Forefront in Suicide Prevention and the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. We hope that you'll join us there by registering on our website at dbtinschools.com. Second announcement is that if you already don't know and you haven't been joining Jim and I every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, we do a parenting through COVID-19 and beyond. We will continue that through the summer, where we focus on how do we as parents and partners and now teachers and school lunch person and all the things we've been doing during this COVID-19 and school nurse, how are we using our DBT Steps A skills to survive and thrive during this time? So come join us there as well. So with that, let's get started this morning. We always start our Steps A classes with a mindfulness activity. You got it. All right, quick pop quiz. What is mindfulness?
Putting your mind
Where
you want it to be instead of where you don't want it to be.
Putting it where you want it to be? What do you got? Jackson? You kind of summed it up. All right, do you have any other pieces? All right, Jackson, what are the two categories of skills that we teach in mindfulness?
What, how?
The what and the how skills, exactly. Good job. And the what skills we observe, describe, and participate.
And how's how we do it.
And how is how we do it. Do you remember what the 3 how skills are, Jackson? Any of them?
There's so many random words that are skills, like fast, give, how.
Lots of skills. Look at Gracie, noticing her urge, tolerating, to what's one way that we are mindful?
Non-judgmental.
We're non-judgmentally. You said it earlier. Observations, that's part of the what skills?
We are in the moment.
One mindfully in the moment. And my favorite skill
is effectiveness.
Is effectiveness. You got it, Grace. You are on it, right? That's why I always walk around doing my Be Effective cheer.
Oh,
right? Excellent.
Effective.
Oh.
B-E effective. B-E-E-F-F-E-C-T-I-V-E. B effective. B-E effective. That's right. Those were my cheerleading days back in high school. We've turned it into our own cheer here. All right, so for today's lesson, we are going to do an exercise of mindfulness that we've done once before, and I always think that we have to do multiple exercises repeatedly because sometimes they're really hard the first time, and it's only with practice do we improve and strengthen those mindfulness skills. So a few weeks ago, we practiced embracing discomfort, noticing when we have discomfort in our bodies and we want to avoid it to make it go away.
Wait,
last week we stuck our faces in bowls of ice water.
Yes,
You
two did as part of one of teaching the tip skills last week. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go back to noticing, observing and noticing sensations in our body that may be uncomfortable and sitting with them and experiencing them with them without trying to push it away by stopping the behavior. So a few weeks ago, what we did when we did this, we're going to practice, when I say to start, we are going to lift our arms straight into the air.
We did this before.
And we are going to hold them there for a period of time, not straight up, but straight out. And it's quite possible that if you, while holding it, you may start to get a burning sensation in your arms and shoulders. And you might start having the urge to put your hands down, to wiggle, to try to distract a little bit from it. And I want you to simply notice, observe, and hold. Notice the urge to stop, okay? And hold. Sit with that experience. Does that make sense? So we're going to practice if we have judgmental thoughts of the activity or of mom for putting you in an uncomfortable spot. I want you to simply notice those judgments and let them go. Okay? If you notice that urge to put them down, let it go. If you notice that you get distracted and you start kind of going off in your head so you're not paying attention to that at all, I want you to notice that and bring your attention back to noticing the sensations in your arms. Now at home, if you've got any shoulder or neck problems and that's not something you can do well, that's okay. Choose something you might, if you can, stand on one foot, or you might just lift one arm for that. You can do a variation so that you bring about a little bit discomfort, but nothing that's going to hurt you. Okay? You guys ready? So I want you to sit all the way at the end of your chair
Mindfulness position.
in your mindfulness wide awake position. That's exactly right.
Wait, this far?
Yep, where your feet are flat on the floor.
That was back here.
Okay, feet flat on the floor. And your back straight up and down. All right, Grace, come on, sit forward. All right, and what I want you to do during this, you're going to find a place to rest your eyes, keep them open, and looking down somewhere. I don't want you kind of looking all around, looking at each other. Just resting a spot for your gentle gaze, and then keeping your focus on the sensations in your arms. Okay, any questions? All right,
What if we have sensations on our face?
so just notice that.
What
And
if you have to like yawn and like wipe your eyes?
so I want you to notice it without wiping your eyes, because that may be your brain trying to convince you, like, oh, move your arms, right? Just notice. You can tolerate that and bring your attention back. Okay? All right, everybody at home, ready? Get ready. 1, take a 2, take a deep breath. 3, lift your arms. And stop. Bring your arms down.
Jackson scared me.
Okay.
Grace is having a hard time.
All right.
He did with his
All right.
hands.
Okay. Let's focus here now. Right? So, what did you notice? What did you observe during that practice? And everybody at home, I want you all to put in the chat box what you noticed as well. What did you notice?
That Jackson was going like this.
So you got distracted by Jackson you got distracted by Jackson rather than focusing on you. Okay, you took your attention away. Let's go back to what did you notice about the exercise? Grace.
I noticed that in the middle of it, like it didn't start like this, but some of it in the middle, my arms just started squeaking.
Okay, so you said that last time. You noticed some noises in your arms. Okay. All right. What did you notice, Jackson, during that?
They got heavy.
Your arms started to feel heavy and your shoulders. Okay. What about you, Ashton?
it was hard to like do this and then still stay straight sitting on it.
Stay straight sitting
I,
up.
like,
Okay.
lean
Did you
back.
guys notice the urge to want to make the discomfort go away?
Yes.
Yes.
To push it away, to move them down? Okay. Anybody noticed at home?
I noticed I started to hold my breath.
Ah, okay.
Someone said that last time.
Yep, so that often happens, right? We start holding, realize we're focusing so tightly we forget about some other things that we're doing, right? So what's my next question? What is the question I always ask at the end of all of our mindfulness?
No, it's debrief.
How is this relevant to your life?
That's right, Grace. Yes.
I thought it was debrief.
So that is kind of debriefing. We debrief by saying, how is this relevant? So, Jackson, how do you think this practice is relevant to our lives?
We have to bear with a lot of things.
Right, we have to bear with sometimes the pain. We can't just push it away, right? And so it helps us practice to sitting with discomfort, not always just pushing away uncomfortable things. What are some of the uncomfortable things that we sometimes try to push away rather than sit with?
When I'm running and my legs get super
So sometimes when you're running and you've got to push through it. Any other thoughts? What's one thing we talk about sometimes, like it's uncomfortable and you have math, sitting with your math and doing that, and schoolwork, even though it's hard. The other thing I think a lot about is also emotions. Like when we feel sad or anxious or embarrassed or guilt or shame, right? Sometimes we have to sit with those emotions rather than just trying to get away from them all the time, especially anxiety, right? Things that make us anxious, we want to get away from them so we stop feeling anxious. But maybe sometimes we have to sit with that anxiety in order to get it down for the long term. So we practice sitting with discomfort, right? Having uncomfortable conversations, sitting with uncomfortable emotions. And the more we can sit with that, the more we can work through it. So that's why we practice an exercise like this. Any questions from you guys? No?
My hair is too long.
Okay. And a question from home.
Just one thing that someone noticed was that they needed to improve their posture. So in doing that they felt like their posture, they needed to sit more, I think their back straight up is what I'm guessing.
Right, and that's part of noticing that maybe you weren't sitting at the beginning in that wide awake mindfulness position with a straight back. And being able to do that.
Cheating.
Okay, so that's great. All right, guys, we're going to take a switch. Dad's going to start teaching the lesson for today. All right, and you guys keep jumping in. And you guys at home keep giving us feedback and jumping in with questions and comments.
Great, all right.
I'm
in.
I have one last
So-
comment about the thingy.
What's the thing? Go ahead.
At the end, not in the middle of it, I noticed that my feet were like this.
You mean the exercise? So your feet were off the floor?
No, not in the exercise, after the exercise.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm going up.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to do a lesson that we did back in the early days, March 30th. And so we are going to talk about what radical acceptance today. All right? And Mom, if you can give me that next slide so I can give our audience at home the overview of where we are, that'd be great. All right, so remember that we have this dialectic of going back and forth between change skills and acceptance skills, right? And we just got done covering a lot of our change skills before, okay? And that now we're back over here to the acceptance side, and we're doing what's one of our distress tolerance skills is going to be reality, accepting reality, all right? And so the long term. Keep in mind, radical acceptance is one of our accepting reality skills. There are two types of distress tolerance skills. Remember what they are?
Give and fast.
Survival.
Crisis survival, beautiful, Ashton.
Emotional regulation.
Emotional regulation is different module. Hold up, wait. I love the enthusiasm. All right, Ashton, sticking with you. Crisis survival.
And opposite action.
Opposite actions, a different skill. So why do we use crisis survival skills?
Because you're above 65.
You're above 65. We don't want to make things
Worse.
right. What if, though, it's a long term? We do those in the short term, and what we're trying to do is now think about things in the long term. All right? And so, Mom, if you can give me the next slide so I can have everybody see this. So we saw this before that and Ashton, you were really well commenting about it, about that 65. What happens, though, if we're below 65? It's a situation that we can't change. We went and we checked the facts.
Oh, yeah.
And the facts fit, our thoughts fit that this is a tough situation. So we're not going to do opposite action because that's when the facts don't fit, right? And so now that the facts fit the situation, we can either problem solve, but what if it's not solvable? Then it's wave skill. That's right, wave skill. Good job, Grace. It's wave skill. And it's all the way back over to radical acceptance, too. That we have to accept the reality for what it is. All right? And so that's how we kind of have those things being intertwined, or what we call stacking, right? Steps. Accepts is actually one of our crisis survival skills. That's right. Keep in mind, crisis survival short term. These are the long term strategies, okay? And so here's what we're going to do. All right? So I want you to get your clipboards there. Okay, you have that? All right? And for those of you at home, I have a slide for you. It's a handout 10.2 on page 402 from the curriculum here, okay? And so I would like somebody to read their first. I will go with. But Jackson raised his hand first, so I'm going to go with that one. All right, Jackson, what do you have there? What does it say?
Solve the problem.
Okay, so can you read the title first, though?
4 solutions to any problem.
4 solutions to any problem. So problems and how we solve those problems tend to come into these 4 different categories, all right? So Jackson's going to read them to us. Go ahead, Jackson.
Number 1.
Yep.
Solve the problem.
Yep.
2. Change how you feel about the problem. 3. Asterisk. Accept and tolerate it. 4. Stay miserable or possibly make it worse.
All right. So solving the problem is a place that we could go to help resolve things, right? We have talked about, though, there are certain things that have happened, especially in this last 3 months, why we're actually doing these live streams, that doesn't allow us to solve the problem, right? We haven't solved COVID-19. Great, Grace. All right. So we could do number 2, how we change how we feel about it, right? Can we change how we feel about COVID-19? Maybe.
happening for us, not to
Right? Coronavirus is happening for us. I love it.
Against us.
Coronavirus is happening for us, not to us. I like that. So it changes kind of how we feel. What if we have to just accept the issue of the coronavirus, accept the issue of some of the things that are happening right now in our country, right? That's where we're going to focus, on tolerating that issue, accepting things for what they really are and tolerating it, okay?
What's number 4?
Number 4, what does number 4 say, Ashton?
Do nothing.
No, it says stay miserable or make it worse.
Stay miserable and make it
All right,
worse. It's
so-
pretty much do nothing and make it
No, it's not do nothing. So keep in mind,
be sad.
if we give into our emotions, right? Because we're above 65, what usually happens?
Make it worse.
We make it worse, right? That's what it means by staying miserable or making it worse. Can you think of any times you've made things worse?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
When you get mad.
When I get mad and then you make some disrespectful statement or you smart off, and do I think, oh, that's okay, or does it get worse?
I get grounded.
You don't get grounded.
I get grounded and I made a face at her.
All right, so you make things worse, right? Grace, can you think of a time that you've made things worse because your emotions, you're an emotion mind?
Overreacted on chipping my tooth.
Overreaction on chipping your tooth. Yeah, okay, that would be a good one. And Jackson, any times that you've overreacted?
I know one.
Wait, let Jackson think. Think about things that have put you into emotion mind. Wait. It's okay. No, you're going to stay right there.
I don't know.
Can't think of anything right now?
I got something.
You got something for Jackson? What?
Ashton stealing your phone.
Oh yeah.
Ashton taking your phone. And then you might hit him, you might make things worse. So that was a good one, Grace. Nice assistance.
I just demand it back.
So here's the thing, right? We want to try to make sure that we're not making things worse. All right? There you could solve that problem. Grace's tooth, we could possibly solve. We didn't want to, right?
What do you mean?
Well, the idea, we did a pros and cons, right? So that was one of our crisis survival skills that we've talked about. And so this is though for the long term. This is what we're trying to do, okay? And so I'm going to flip over your sheet of paper. And for those of you at home, Mom, can we give them that slide? I want you to think of 3 areas today in your family. It could be to your family. It could be things that are going on outside your family to where you have situations where you can't solve the issue, where we need to start using radical acceptance. And I can think of 3 pretty strong ones for the Mazda family at this point. Let's give our audience at home a couple of seconds as we kind of talk through maybe some things that we would have.
So what do you want them to specifically
So
pull out at home?
I want you to pull out the examples of areas in which you need to use radical acceptance, right? Where we want to be able to accept the reality for what it is, and that we have a hard time doing that. So I'll give you a hint. One of the ones for the Mazdas is COVID-19. A second area for us that we have to accept really as is that we have protesting that's happening here in Seattle. We do, right? And that's the reality of it, right? That there's some systemic difficulties that are happening here, right? All right, can we think of a third? And those of you at home, go ahead and put them in the chat box too.
We don't have a dog.
Well, right, but that's a problem-solving one. Grace, can you think of anything else?
Something that we cannot change right now is
Wait. Go ahead.
the riots.
The protesting. Okay, so that's one of the ones that I already have. Jackson, what do you think about yourself? Wait. What's something that we have to radically accept, especially us and maybe all the people at St. Al's?
Politics.
St. Al's.
Politics.
At St. Al's, the students all have to accept the politics. So think about what we're trying to do, right? Maybe school might be online.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
But that's right. So that's what I'm trying to talk about, right? That might be a time when we have to radically accept some things, right? Well, it's not a judgment, Grace. It is what it is, right? Someone's going to have to make that statement. Someone's going to have to make that decision, right? And so I think that's what's important that we want to come back to. All right. What do we have at home? What do people tell us?
They have not told us yet.
We don't have anything at this point. Okay. So here's what happens when we have these situations. So COVID-19 is pretty painful. The protesting that's going on, I certainly think is warranted, and we need, as a country, to start thinking about how do we radically accept this, right? And so we're going to try to see some of the ways that we can do this, right? One of the things that's important about radical acceptance is that we're trying to accept things as they are, right? So can we get out of all of our pain? No, right?
Pain is inevitable.
Great, that's exactly right. Pain is inevitable. We're going to have pain. No matter. Suffering is optional. So here's the formula that we're going to put down. And I want you to think about this. Those of you at home too, I hope you can see my writing. I want you to think about this, right? So wait a minute, guys. Suffering
Equals pain.
Suffering equals pain.
And non-acceptance.
Wait. That's right. Plus non-acceptance. Right? Now, Ashton, this is what you're doing in math. No. Yes, it actually is. So if we had one thing on the side of the equation here, all right, and we're trying to get rid of our suffering, right, or reduce that suffering enough. So what can we do, Ashton, to balance suffering and make pain and suffering to be equal, not increasing it? What would you take away in the equation? Look at here. You have to look at this.
All the math.
What would you take away?
The math.
Come on over. Stand up. You can stand up and look at that. What would you take away? So that you take this away. How do we take that away?
We accept.
That's right. You accept the reality for what it is. If we do that, though, right? If we accept reality as is, has our pain gone away? No. What we've done, though, is we've reduced the suffering. And I think that's the major part of what we're trying to do. So what I want you to do is pick up your sheets of paper again. Yeah. Anything from home about areas?
The inability to travel and see family.
Great. Yes. Excellent. That is right. We're not going back to Wisconsin to see Grandma and Grandpa, right? So absolutely. All right. So Jackson, what does it say that you have there? And this is again a handout 10.2. Mommy, you can go to the next slide. One up. Right. Why bother? Why should we bother accepting reality? I'm going to let, Jackson already read it. Grace, you go ahead and read.
Rejecting reality doesn't change it.
Great. Nice and
Taking
loud.
reality requires first accepting reality.
Great.
I don't get that.
Accepting reality first.
Oh, okay. Rejecting reality turns pain into suffering,
Yes.
and refusing to accept reality can get you stuck in anger, unhappiness, and shame.
That's what we don't want to get stuck in, right? And Grace,
Black and white.
that should say changing reality, right? Changing reality requires first accepting reality.
Yeah, it's like black or white.
Okay? That's right. So we don't want to get into black and white thinking. We don't want to get stuck in anger, unhappiness, and shame. And did we not get stuck in anger, unhappiness, and shame when we were doing online schooling?
Yes.
And then what happened? Then also
Got mad.
some things got canceled on us, right? Like camps, right? Activities. And so you can stay mad at it. Did it help? Did it change the situation? Did the camps come back? Did we get to go to graduation? Nope.
It just
Nope.
made you feel more mad.
Yeah, it made you feel worse, right? So that's why we're trying to figure out our reality acceptance skills using radical acceptance, okay? So great. So that's why we need to do it. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is what's important, and I think Ashton hit it really well for us, is that he was talking about that pain is inevitable, right? We can't get rid of pain. It's part of our life. The pain place that we have in a say in matters is our suffering. The could-have, would-haves, and should-haves increase our suffering, right? Those are difficult for us. And so we want to get rid of could-have, would-have, and should-have.
Because it's like
And we,
it's too late, and it's like, well, I could have done this, I would have.
Should
yeah, that's right. So we want to make sure that we just stick to what's happening at that point and looking at the reality of where things are, okay? All right. So, Mom, next slide. So what steps do we have to do that? So here's going to be my steps, all right?
accepting.
Step, but this is, turn over your handout again. And it's going to be our AAA model.
Oh, awareness, accept, and action.
So here's what has to happen when we're looking at radical acceptance and trying to figure out how do we accept reality for what it is, all right? We have a AAA model. Ashton, it is actually your turn to read, so you get this one. So what's the first A? Wait, stop right there. Awareness. What does that mean?
Awareness has to come first, like before you try and solve the problem.
We need to be aware. So let's pull out awareness.
Knowing your surroundings before you take a jump.
Correct. So that'd be good,
Look
right?
before you leap, basically.
Okay. How about though what's happening right now in today's world about COVID-19 or some of the protesting? What's the awareness that we need to have?
We need to know the facts before we go make accusations.
Okay, accusations. So what are some of the facts that we need to be aware of?
That the
Dogs eat kibble.
Stay focused.
We're just talking about dogs.
I know. So stay focused. COVID-19 and protesting. Stay focused.
we know that we can't be with
Black
friends.
lives matter.
So say again.
We know we can't be close with friends.
You can't be close with friends. So that's the COVID-19 piece, right?
Lives matter.
That's right. Black lives matter. They absolutely do, right? And so that's what the protesting is about. And so what do we have to be cognizant about there? What's the awareness piece? Especially for us as our family.
We have white privilege.
That's right. The color of our skin, right? We have white privilege. We need to be aware that we have been part of the problem, right? Not necessarily as many as you guys because you're young, but certainly for me, being white and male, right? So I have to be aware that that's something that's happening. I have to accept, and Ashley, you get to read again. I have to accept that I have contributed to some of this problem. That I need to change my way. So go ahead and read, Ashley. What does it say?
Accept that the reality is there. Accept that the reality is there is problem.
Is a problem, all right?
It says is.
Yep. All right.
There
Probably missing an
is.
A. There is a problem, right? That there is a problem that's there, all right? And I have to accept, and painful as that is, that I'm a part of it. And if you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have thought, no, how could I be a part of it, right? The reality is that I am.
Because we didn't saying.
I understand. So it's more of a radical.
Because this wasn't here before.
It was underneath the surface. We've seen this before, right? And so the radical acceptance is what we did in the past hasn't worked. And that actually radical acceptance would say this has been going on for hundreds of years. Hundreds.
Wait.
Back to slaves.
So
all COVID-19.
No, back to slavery and back to when our country was really young.
1700s.
I'm a part of this. 1600s even, right? So I'm a part of this. I have to accept that. It doesn't feel comfortable to me, and I have to be okay with my arms out, right? I have to be okay with being uncomfortable to say I've got to do something different. And that's where we are right now in our country, to say enough. Yes, this is painful, and let's not woulda, couldas, and shouldas anymore, because that's increasing our suffering, right?
We need to speak out.
We need to speak out, and we need to do the third step. Now that I've accepted it,
We need to take action.
that's right. Great, Ashton. Action is the last one. And so now it's not enough just to talk about it. We need to take action. And what does the action say there, Ashton? On the sheet, please read the sheet.
Take action to problem solve, and if it's not solvable in the moment, take steps for future change.
Right, and so that's the big piece that's here right now, right?
Coronavirus.
Well, and so we can't solve that one either. So we can pull up coronavirus, but let's stay with the protesting, right? And Black Lives Matter, all right? What we want to do now is to say, okay, I can't change the situation today, this hour, this moment, right? And the system is broke. Our system has not been very kind to, especially to people of color, and especially to Black lives, right? And so how do I then take steps to the future to change the future? How can I do that for Black Lives Matter?
You steal the
We're not stealing anything, because that would be more like violence. What can we do? Think about what we can do.
Give people of color most of their rights back.
Well, we haven't taken the rights away. We just are not treating them the same, right? We're discriminating against them.
What could we do?
What can we do for steps in the future, right?
Take the time machine and
Take the time machine. That, if we could do that, we would have done it a long time ago. That's a problem solving. What if we went and protested? Would that be okay?
No,
Why?
because it just make it bigger and then we get more mad.
No. So I'm glad you said that, right? And so if we accept reality for what it is, we're going to get our anger down and say, I'm part of the issue. I want to stick up for my Black colleagues, people of color, and eliminate discrimination, especially amongst our Black people, right? And so I want to protest non-violently. That's the whole thing, though, right? We don't want to be in emotion mind. We want to be in wise mind in doing this thing, all right? And so I think that's important. Jackson, thinking about you, what else could you do?
Yes. Make signs.
Can make signs. Great idea, right? We can, if our friends are talking about that this is stupid, what can we say?
That's a judgment.
It is, and we can say no, it's not, or we can say we've got to take our responsibility. That's right. That's your interpretation. So that's important, right? So wait a second. Let's just say that. So that's Black Lives Matter. We also talked about COVID-19. What else do we have to do to change the future of COVID-19? What else can we do?
Stay safe and stay inside.
Stay safe and stay inside. Keep practicing.
Radical acceptance.
Yes, and social distancing. We have to radically accept that even when we see our friends right now, we still need to stay 6 to 8 feet away, right? We need to radically accept that the COVID virus is still around. States are going up, okay?
Anticipate what's going to happen.
Well, and then not to give hugs, all
At
right?
least try to anticipate.
Okay, so, and then what was our final one about online schooling, right? What else can we do there for steps to the future?
We can adapt and you can accept saying, well, this is how it's going to be, so I better get used to it.
Correct.
So I'm not trying to just white knuckle it.
Great.
I have one more comment from the audience about our last topic of Black Lives Matter, to speak about speak out about how we feel about this with friends and don't let it drop in just a week or 2 weeks.
Correct.
Don't let this just go past us, to
Great.
keep coming back to it.
Great contribution, and that person has some wisdom because we've seen this before. You guys are pretty young for that. We've seen protests happen before, and a week later they die down and nobody talks about it again. And what we're saying here is we don't want that to happen. We want this to be different because we need to make change, and our system needs to make change.
Because like it's like, oh, protest, and they're like, okay, and then because they know it's gonna end soon, so this is like
They just wait.
actually want
Well,
change now.
that's right, and I think some people are trying to wait it out, and they're saying no, we're done. We've seen this.
waiting.
We've seen this before.
They've
Great.
been waiting for
So let's go back to online school. Was online schooling this quarter, this trimester, perfect?
No.
Was it? Could you find some places to improve it?
Yes, but it was definitely
So,
effective.
so could the school. So we can do radical acceptance in changing how we do online schooling if that's what happens come September.
And it was definitely effective.
Okay, great. All right, Grace.
It's like, I do not like this. And
That's right. There's an and. It's not a but. Very good. All right.
this is reality.
One more page. So Jackson, can you flip to your next page there? If there aren't any more comments in the chat bar. Now that we have our AAA model, okay, Jackson, tell us how we can use that AAA model when we're doing radical acceptance. So this is where what radical acceptance actually is. And so go ahead and read it, and I'll try to walk you through those pieces.
Number 1 is the skill of accepting
Thing.
things you cannot change in the moment.
Right. So radical acceptance is the skill of accepting things you cannot change in the moment. We have several of those. COVID-19, Black Lives
protests,
Matter, online schooling, not seeing our friends, camp being canceled, right? So those are huge, right? So we have to accept things for how they really are. Next one, Jackson. Wait. Go ahead.
Radical equals complete and total acceptance in mind, heart, and body.
So when we're pulling out the word radical out of acceptance, what makes radical acceptance different? What is radical? Complete and total acceptance in the mind, in the heart, and in the body. That we're completely saying, I'm 100% participating in this, and I believe it with my heart, mind, and body. That would be important. All right? Jackson, what about acceptance?
Equals seeing acceptance equals seeing reality for what it is, even if you don't like it.
Right. Even if we don't like online schooling, even if we don't like camp, even if we don't like maybe the protests, that's how it is, right? And so us saying we don't like it doesn't change things.
The
Right
only
here,
thing it
okay?
changes
We like
is
it.
our anger.
So what we want to do is reduce the suffering, all right? And so accepting reality for how it is becomes really important. So we first have to be aware and then accept, right? Finally, here's our action step. Jackson, read that last one.
Acceptance does not mean approval. Acknowledge, recognize, and endure.
Right.
Do not give up.
Right. So I think it's really important, especially for our audience at home, that we talk about radical acceptance. It is not saying it's okay that something happens, right? It's not okay if somebody is being abusive. We can radically accept that situation is really difficult and it's hurtful, and we're not saying it's okay. Acceptance simply means it is what it is, right? And then we're trying to make a change. In this moment, I need to accept reality for what it is, and then what steps, right? So awareness, I accept it for what it is. What steps can I take in the future to change this situation because I don't like it, right?
Does the accepting always have to be bad, like a bad thing? Like
No.
Accept that your kid's going to college?
No, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? So we might have, when Jackson goes off to college because he's our oldest, Mom and I might have some sadness, and we have to radically accept that Jackson is 18, 19 going off to college,
outta
right?
here.
And so we might be sad because he's no longer in the house. And
I'll
so
have 2 rooms.
that's how it is. You will not have 2 rooms, all right?
I will have
And
two
so
rooms.
here's the other point that's important with acceptance. We have to acknowledge, recognize, endure. So just because you accept something, and especially those of you at home, doesn't mean we give up. Matter of fact, that's what we're trying to say, especially with our Black Lives Matter protests, is we're not giving up. We're not going to let this go away. We are going to keep doing it until we get change. That's important. Acceptance doesn't mean it's passive. It doesn't mean that we say, it doesn't matter anymore.
Like you just like send them a letter and then like if they respond saying no, it's like okay.
No, well, we've written to Mom and I have already written to our congressman, right? And so we've already have provided support to some of our friends. And so that's what we're trying to do to make that difference. All right. So any questions there? Mom, what's my next slide? I think it is. Any questions about when we use the skill of radical?
When there's a problem that you can't change.
Great problem you can't change. It's not in the short term, it's the long term, right? If it's in the short term, what do we use?
Emotional regulation.
Crisis survival. Emotional regulation is when it's above 65. If it's below.
No, that's below.
So what didn't I just say that? Let's try that again. Crisis survival is above 65. I thought that's what I just said. I thought that's what I just said. Crisis survival is above 65. Emotion regulation is below 65. Keeping in mind, though, when the facts do fit and it's not solvable, we're either with wave skill or all the way back over to radical acceptance so that we don't have to increase the suffering, right? It's a painful situation. All right, great. Anything from home here? So here's what I'd like to share with you for just kind of a summary.
Take-home points.
Or take-home points. Thank you, Ashton. All right? Radical acceptance does not equal approval. That because we can radically accept something, a difficult situation, does not mean that we approve of what's happened. All right? What we do want to do is find a way to make change if we can. All right? Especially if it's unsolvable in the moment. What steps can we take to make those change? Number 2, pain is inevitable. We are going to experience pain in our lives. All right? And
Suffering is optional.
And I'm sure some of the parents that are listening thought it was painful to have kids at home for schooling. I'm sure some of the kids at home thought it was painful to have school at home, right? So pain is inevitable. It's going to happen. Suffering about would have, could have, and should have are really going to make it a lot worse.
Stop shooting.
That's right. Stop shooting, right?
Shooting on
So
yourselves.
it makes the suffering worse, right? And when we increase our suffering, where do we tend to get out of and go into? We tend to get out of what?
Wise mind.
And into
Emotion mind.
smooth. Way to go.
Big
Crushing. All right.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be in emotion mind because emotion mind doesn't make.
Things better.
Emotion mind usually makes things
Worse.
That's right. Makes things worse. We don't want to do that. That's why we have crisis survival skills, right? So that we don't make things worse.
Action.
Opposite action is on the emotion regulation side. Okay. All right. Finally, point 3. Steps for radical acceptance is actually the AAA model. We first need to be aware of what's happening. We need to be aware of the situation. We need to be aware of online school. We need to be aware of COVID. We need to be aware of Black Lives Matter. We need to be aware of things that may be at your house. Be aware of those situations. That's the first step. The second is that we need to accept the reality for where it is right now. That doesn't mean you approve of it, and it doesn't mean that you give up on it. It means it is what it is right now. And then the third step
You take
is you take action, right? And the action is to make systemic change, is to make changes in maybe a relationship, is to make changes in how we perceive online schooling, and to make changes structurally to that so that maybe online schooling can be better, or to wear masks for COVID-19. I mean, those are the things that we're talking about by taking action. And it's right, so that we can change the future. By us putting on our masks, we're trying to reduce the spread of COVID-19. That's a future step because we're trying to get back to where we can be in person for a lot of things, right? So this is why not opposite action, you got me saying opposite action now. This is why radical acceptance is such an important skill because it helps us on the distress tolerance side and also helps us on the emotion regulation side when we come all the way down. Yes?
Yeah, and one of our viewers is saying that knowing that acceptance is not passive or doesn't mean that you're giving up. It's a helpful shift in thinking.
That's right. And that's what I'm saying. It's not passive at all, right? So you can be active in radical acceptance. It actually will help you endure the situation longer, and it'll move you to the action step sooner than if you were woulda, coulda, and shoulda been.
Right.
Right?
And if I could just make one more comment, it's also pulling in that because with radical acceptance, we get pain, right? We let go of the suffering, but we still have pain. Linking it back to the mindfulness exercise we did today, right? Recognizing that we can sit with discomfort so that when we practice radically accepting things that may be painful,
Let's come up here.
that when we practice radically accepting things that are painful, we're also practicing sitting with that discomfort. Sometimes radical acceptance brings us sadness.
Because sitting with discomfort's like sitting with emotion.
And
Right.
some of it is sad, right? So that sadness can be real. The fact that we weren't at school, it was sad. The fact that we don't have an 8th grade graduation, some of your classmates, Jack, is painful. That's sad. So I think that that's important to recognize, and that's the reality of which it is, right?
We can't
And so
change it.
that was one of the reasons why having some of that, the exercise that Mom did for mindfulness was, yeah, some of it's going to be painful, and we can still get through it, and we still want to be active in what we're pursuing, right? Don't give up on those goals, even though the reality right now might be different. All right. So with that, I want to make a final announcement here again. Remember our live Q&A, June 16th at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That's 10 to 11. Just register at DBT in Schools. That's being sponsored by Forefront as well as the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. And then finally, come and join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. on Facebook Live. All right. Anything you want to say last?
Make sure
Statement?
to hit the like button and subscribe.
All right.
We hit over 300 subscribers.
Hit the like button and subscribe. All right. Take care. Talk to you later. All right. Bye-bye.
Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.